that's one of the big shifts that I've seen happen also through COVID, Ken, is the shift from pre-COVID. I would say most business leaders would think that they're responsible for the work experience of their employees. And so what can we do to make your work experience what you want it to be? What's happened during COVID is, I believe, the businesses that are going to win and retain their top talent and attract the best of the best, they're actually saying, we need to take care of that whole person's life, starting with their health. Let's talk about their wealth. Let's talk about their physical environment. It's the whole life, like treat the person as a human being. Right now, it's a huge differentiator because there's a lot of companies that are slow to move towards, it's not just about work, work, work. It is about the whole person's life experience that as leaders, we have now been called upon to reframe and put things in place to support our employees.
Hello and welcome to Say Hi to the Future, a podcast aimed at highlighting the human side of human ingenuity, clever, inventive, and original thinking. My name is Ken Tenser, CEO of SpyderWorks, a leading business consultancy for mid-market organizations and entrepreneurs globally. With me today is Nancy MacKay, founder of MacKay CEO Forums. Nancy saw a need in the world for business leaders to be able to learn from each other and founded MacKay CEO Forums to create a peer learning opportunity for all leaders. She's joined us today to talk about how the role of CEO has changed since she founded her forum back in 2005. Like this video if you enjoy our show and subscribe to our channel. Leave us a comment with who we should interview next. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show. Nancy, welcome to Say Hi to the Future.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Ken. Always a pleasure to have a conversation with you. And it's always inspiring when I get to spend time with you.
Well, thank you for that. And Nancy, let's start. I mean, you founded MacKay CEO Forums in 2005. And the vision, if I understand it right, was to populate the world with inspiring leaders. What is an inspiring leader?
Well, we actually call it our dream, Ken, which is to populate the world with inspiring leaders. And we believe that business leaders are actually our best hope for making our world a more inspiring world based on all of the things that are going on, not just COVID. And our definition of inspiring leadership is it starts with, well, three things. One is inspired leadership. You go first, which is you need to be able to figure out how you're going to inspire yourself every day, which is a big piece of work. And that is the beginning of inspiring leadership. And once you figure out how to inspire yourself every day, which we have a whole toolkit on helping leaders based on what we've learned over the past 17 years at MacKay CEO Forums on how to do that, then it's much easier to inspire other people, which is the second aspect of inspiring leaders, is you inspire yourself, you inspire others to take positive action. And the third part of it is you are then able to achieve extraordinary outcomes, which are defined by you and your own measure of success around your passion and your commitment to making a difference in the world. So those are the three key aspects of how we define inspiring leadership.
Well, thank you for that. I think it's fantastic. I mean, I think today, and I think I look at my kids' generation, their mid-late 20s, the notion of not just inspiring others, but being connected to our world. I think it's more the norm, or it's more something that they're more aware of or connected to. To see that you brought that to the CEO level and you did it 10, 15, 20 years ago, I think that's incredible and incredibly important.
Well, thank you for that acknowledgement. And I want to say we have a whole team at MacKay CEO Forums, our forum chairs, who are all very successful, trusted advisors, and they work tirelessly, especially during COVID, to really support CEOs, executives, and business owners through the whole COVID journey. And we have our whole leadership team, and we really, I think, as you know, we're a beneficial corporation, which is a big part of our culture and our set of values, which we take a stand on wanting to be the best for the world, not just the best in the world. And we want other people to join us on that journey, because we think that now more than ever, it's an exponential change world. The world has changed. And if people are still using the same outdated leadership principles that they used 17 years ago, they're not going to win. That kind of old school telling culture, command and control, I'm the boss at the top, that's really become very obsolete in our view. And are they showing up as inclusive leaders? Are they showing up as, I have to be the smartest person in the room and tell people what to do and have all the answers? Or are they showing up, we call it sharing their experiences, which is a very inspiring leadership approach, where we let go of having to have all the answers. And this is our leadership philosophy at MacKay CEO Forums. Every one of our 100+ CEO peer groups around the world, we really help leaders understand that there's a new language. It's called sharing experiences, just telling true stories about what you've done that's worked or hasn't worked. And that's a new approach that's going to speed up results. It's inspiring because then people can make their own decisions as to how they want to move forward. And we all know that when you tell people what to do, they get defensive, they play the blame game. They might say, yeah, boss, sure, I'll do it. But my experience has been, they'll say, so we have to make this intentional shift. And we're committed at MacKay CEO Forums to really helping business leaders who are ready for that. You know, some people are just, they don't think it's necessary. Other people, in particular in the B Corp movement, where as CEOs taking a stand on people, planet, profit, and how we treat our people matters now more than ever before. What are we doing to solve some of the world's biggest problems that many of us as boomers, we created those problems. So it's owning it and using business as a force for good. And that's been an explosive movement during COVID. It's just been such a beautiful part of COVID, is seeing so many business leaders reach out to me saying, look, we want to become part of the B Corp movement. We want to take a stand on ESG, all aspects of ESG and social impact, investing, and what have you. And that's the future we live in, is if we had every single business leader really looking at business as a force for good on people, planet, profit, then that's going to go a long way towards helping to shift people that don't see that this is what's necessary.
And I think, Nancy, as I listen to that, and I'm well aware of the B Corp movement, I think, and it's very hard to say this, but sometimes good does come out of a terrible situation. And if we can draw anything from the pandemic, I think we've really seen a movement to helping one another. I mean, I'm not saying that is translated today into, a move to the B Corp, but, during these very trying times, I was a chair of the Mississauga Board of Trade, and we had the Mississauga Economic Resilience Group pop up. And this was a group of leaders. Not all of their businesses were doing incredibly well at the time, but they said it doesn't matter. We have to,
that's one of the big shifts that I've seen happen also through COVID, Ken, is the shift from pre-COVID. I would say most business leaders would think that they're responsible for the work experience of their employees. And so what can we do to make your work experience what you want it to be? What's happened during COVID is, I believe, the businesses that are going to win and retain their top talent and attract the best of the best, they're actually saying, we need to take care of that whole person's life, starting with their health. Let's talk about their wealth. Let's talk about their physical environment. It's the whole life. And those people who are doing that are going to be rewarded.
Yeah. Well, and, you're picking up on a point that I discussed with another guest just a couple of days ago, and she was talking about career fluidity and the fact that we do change careers more often, and we're going to, because technology is going to drive us in that way. And as you're describing, it's the full experience of what I'll call the employment engagement rather than the job, how you're treated, working from home. The notion, again, 20, 30 years ago, if a side hustle was not a side hustle and it was not a positive thing, it was, why are you working after hours for, something other than the benefit of this company? Whereas today we're learning that this is a very enriching thing for you to do. So as you're saying that, I'm just supporting people in their careers, as you're saying, is supporting people in their lives and their livelihood and their overall happiness experience, if you will.
And getting them to tell the truth, if we give them a voice, to say what really matters to you. And I think there's still a lot of assumptions going on around, well, what really matters is I have to pay them more money. And the reality is, well, if you actually ask people what really matters to them, you may find out that it's not about the money, it's about the flexibility. You may find out that they want to be treated as a human being with kindness instead of told what to do and reprimanded. And right, so there are a lot of opportunities for us to give a louder voice to employees so they can just simply speak their truth, ideally judgment free, because we're all unique human beings. And it's going to this personalized approach to how we lead people into the future. It's not treating every single person as, well, here's how it's going to go. It's literally being able to have candid conversations, and then being able to, how do we personalize that employee experience? And how do we find ways to retain our talent? Because they know that if they stay with us, we will make sure that they are having an enjoyable journey. And you know what? If we cannot provide them what they need, and I'm not talking, it's not all rainbows and puppies, Ken. Yeah. It's just tell the truth. And then if we can't provide what it is they want and need, well, then let's help them move on to a different role, in either in the same organization or a different organization, so that they can be achieving their full potential and making the biggest contribution, which, that's what it's all about, is being able to create the space for people to achieve their full potential, make the biggest contribution. And if they're in the wrong place at the wrong time, let's help them figure out where they need to go in order to be able to do that.
And the word that I'm thinking of too, as you describe that, is a pretty simple one in one way, and it's respect, respecting the individual. And and you've known me a while now. My focus is innovation. It's working with leaders on innovation and their teams. And I often get from them, well, if we don't do, what everybody comes up with, or respect everybody's ideas or go with their idea, they're going to be upset. They're going to be put off or disengaged. And my answer, and I think it's what I'm hearing from you, is that no, not everyone's going to be right all the time, but if you hear them, respect what they're saying and constructively address it, meaning, this is why we're doing this versus that. This is why we've chosen one way versus the other. What I find, and again, to your point of bringing people in and engaging or empowering, just have a very respectful two-way conversation, and people will learn and grow and understand your point of view.
Well, that's the dream. Is how do we have people actively listening to understand versus to respond? And when you talk about innovation, I know that's your key area of expertise, or one of your key areas of expertise. We developed through COVID this MacKay master model for inspired leadership. And we have 10 critical leadership skills that we believe in today's exponential change world are so critical and fundamental to all business leaders. And one of them is innovation mastery. Because again, if as leaders, if we're using the same outdated leadership approaches that we've done in the past, we're not going to win. It's a whole new world. And all the things we have to adjust to in terms of the expectations of what are the expectations of business leaders and where are they meant to be, how can they be making the biggest contribution? So we've got these 10 time mastery and ego mastery and passion mastery, relationship mastery. These are all of the elements that we believe that now more than ever, if we have every business leader on the journey of mastering their time. When you master your time, you master your life. Mm-hmm. And that's how you can make the biggest contribution, not just to work, but to making sure that you're not sacrificing your health and your important family relationships. Ego mastery is all about how do you really listen without feeling like you have to get defensive or playing the blame game. And when people are in a negative emotional state, and Ken, I'm sure you've seen it, I've seen it during COVID, people are just in a negative emotional state, exponentially more than pre-COVID. So let's realize that when we are in that negative emotional state, our ego gets really loud and we want to play the blame game, get defensive, and all these things. And so this whole idea of how do we as business leaders step into, we need to become relevant and current and master inspiring ourselves with these critical factors. And by the way, if any of your listeners would like a complimentary copy of our Inspired Leadership You Go First Toolkit strategy guide, then I'm happy to follow up with you and share it freely, because we want people to have a toolkit of how can they innovate, how can they master their time and not burn out, how do they make sure that they're in the right place at the right time, making the biggest contribution.
Oh, that's great. I'm sure that many would appreciate it. COVID. I think you nailed something, or you hit something that's just so important. I mean, I'm a pretty positive person. I'm a pretty resilient person. Holy cow, it's been tough. It's been tough on me. It's been tough on people around me. And what's echoed in my mind is my late father was a very successful entrepreneur. And when I started out in my first business, it was in my late 20s. And he used to say to me, when things get challenging, break down the day into time slots and to activities that you can manage. And he was not super, he didn't have an exact formula, but he would say, if you can manage an hour, focus on the next hour. If you can manage 15 minutes and setting up one appointment, focus on that. And that's something that I've really used in the last 2 years to block out the noise and to actually make some small steps forward when I wasn't exactly sure how. And that was a tough feeling as a leader.
I think that's great that you got some wise comments and insights, and that you've taken it to heart, and it's had an impact on you. And yeah, I one of my areas of expertise that I'm most passionate about is CEO and executive time mastery. And absolutely a key formula for success is really recognizing that each and every one of us, we have these 6 different roles. We have our work role, we have our self-care, which in my view is the most important role, because what I've learned through COVID is a lot of business leaders are not taking the time to take care of themselves personally, whether it's exercise or health or what have you. And we have a mental health crisis going on. And so we have this thing called work, but we have to take care of ourselves. We have hopefully a love relationship that matters to us. We have our kids, we have friends, we have social contribution. And so these are all the elements that we need to really reflect on. We have 100 hours a week of waking hours. If you get the recommended amount of sleep that doctors will say, 7 to 8 hours sleep a night, we have 100 waking hours. And so the key is to really be thinking about how many hours a day do you spend taking care of you? Do you spend with your spouse or the person that you're in a love relation? Do you spend with your kids? Do you spend doing any kind of social contribution? Do you spend taking care of your health? And then the rest of it is work time. And I see one of the biggest mistakes leaders make is they kind of put all the work in there, and then they try to stuff in taking care of themselves and their love relationship and other things that really matter to them. And that to me is heartbreaking because my perspective is if you take care of you, you have a lot more love and energy to give to the rest of the world. If you honor that your family is more important than anyone else, then where you spend your time is a reflection of your commitment to what really matters to you. So this whole idea of role setting goals, we've launched that at MacKay CEO Forums this year, in particular to really help business leaders take a hard look. You got 100 hours a week. Where are you spending it? And you get to choose.
Well, you do. And I think the other thing that we've learned during the pandemic is, as well, especially being Toronto based, taking the commute out of our life has given us a big chunk back for us. Funny personal story. I have a 2-year-old dog and my kids got a little shirt made that said, I'm my dad's 10,000 steps.
Love it.
So absolutely that balance is critical. Nancy, taking a step back for a second, this is a question I've wanted to ask for a while. What is the bridge between effective decision making and inspiration? And what I mean by that, one of my longtime clients, and he's become a friend over the years, CEO of a very good sized company, used to say, it's a democracy until it's not. So there's a point of empowerment, a point of inspiration, but there's a point in which you have to make a decision. Somebody has to make a decision, and that goes with the title and role. How do you do that without undoing all of the good and empowerment and embracing team?
My view is I use the language with my team and our members, who has the D, which comes from a Harvard Business Review article. I don't know if you've read it, but it's one of these articles that I've shared for years and years and years to our members and to so many of the people that I am coaching on time mastery and delegation. It's true delegation is really clarifying who is the decision maker. And the person who's the decision maker is responsible for the outcomes. And it's very empowering to create the clarity on who is making the decision, because that means they're responsible and accountable for the outcomes. And I see a lot of conflict going on in organizations because there isn't clarity on who is the decision maker. And then it becomes despiring because people are having all these meetings and spending hours and hours on meetings, but they haven't really clarified saying, well, no, actually, this is Ken's decision. So when we're discussing things, we're doing it because we're helping Ken make the best decision possible. We're not doing to fight with each other because we all have a big ego and feel like we have the answer. It's getting clear on who is the decision maker. So I think that's the difference between inspiration and despiring. It was what I call it is when we don't have that clarity around who is the decision maker. And when people hang on to the decisions for way too long, it's speeding things up. Is about pushing things down, getting other people to building future leaders, is getting them to make decisions and letting go. And that's not an easy thing to do. And as you know, I just recently transitioned out of the CEO role at MacKay CEO Forums after 17 years as the founder and CEO. And we brought in our new, very inspiring CEO, Bill McLean. And we have that conversation on literally every time we get together. We talk about, as I'm handing things over, you've got the D. It's your decision. I'm no longer making those decisions. And every step of the way. And I believe that that's been key to our successful transition to Bill stepping into the CEO role during COVID, during a time where the world needs more peer support than ever. So that language, I believe, very inspiring.
Well, no, thank you for that, and thank you for sharing about the your recent transition in roles and with MacKay CEO Forum. I think, Nancy, that's a really important lesson. I mean, I've been through that. I've built a firm. I've exited the firm in a very positive way. It did not have my name on the door. So I can only imagine, the sense of pride, but also the sense of challenge in what you're describing.
Well, honestly, I say this to Bill almost every day. He's a dream come true because as a founder, when I let my board know in early 2020 that I wanted to transition out of the CEO role after 16 years, there were some concerns because I have been the founder and have been the CEO for so long. And I said, well, why don't we hire a CEO succession expert, someone who's been there and done that. And I call these people game changers, someone who's been there and done that before, that have a proven roadmap that's going to ensure that we have a very successful, smooth transition over to the new CEO. And I interviewed a whole bunch of people, and I discovered Bill McLean in that interview process to be our succession coach. And halfway through the project, Bill said, I'd like to throw my name in the hat. And I just thought, my dreams come true, because I was thinking if I could find someone like Bill McLean, who has been there and done that before, CEO successions with founders, and he's worked with literally hundreds of business owners and leaders and helping them and scale their businesses. And he has scaled many businesses. Sometimes in life you just luck out and the universe brings you a rock star. And that's what happened. So it makes it super easy for me as a founder to hand things over to Bill, because he's just so competent and he's such a great culture fit. And he's just so respectful of, I am the founder, and he really wants to collaborate with me, and he really wants it to be a very enjoyable journey for the long term for both of us, because I'm still a significant shareholder. I'm on the board. I chair a bunch of CEO groups. I'm still actively involved. I don't have any D. Bill has the D for everything, which is great.
Well, I hope this becomes a great case study that you share further. I mean, I've had the opportunities, to work with many of your chairs and members over the years, and they're an incredible group. And that is because, in great part, because of you. Yes, it's a team. Yes, it's the culture you've built. And I think that right through to the description of the transition, it's really, it's a testament to who you are and what you've done for the CEO community. So I will thank you on behalf of the CEO community for that.
Thank you for that. I appreciate the acknowledgement, and I'm very grateful it's an honor to be part of this amazing community of human beings who really they come together because they want to be the best version of themselves, and they want to step into, how do we treat every person as a human being? How do we make the world a more inspiring world? So it is an unbelievable, inspiring community. And thank you for your contribution, doing the speaking, and your generosity with helping any of our members who reach out to you, who may want some guidance around innovation and any of the things that you do. So thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Nancy. And as our time draws to a close, the last question I have for you is, look, the role has changed, leadership has changed, the CEO role has changed. We've touched on many aspects. Our next gen leaders, and I don't know if there's an age to it, because there's a lot of 20-something CEOs these days, but so let's just say our next gen leaders, our aspiring CEOs, what do they need to do? What do they look like to be successful in the next 5 to 10 years?
The number one message, I love coaching young CEOs as much as I love coaching very experienced CEOs, which I've been doing for over 17 years. And the one thing I say to them is, you be you. And it's time for people to have the space to take a stand on their uniqueness, who they really are, what they're committed to, what they want to take a stand on. And, in the past, people were so concerned about hierarchies and, oh my gosh, and we have to go through the levels of hierarchy and make decisions. And you know what? The new generation is all about, like, hey, we're all just human beings. And I don't have a problem going to talk to the CEO. I don't have a problem going to talk to whoever it is, like the biggest customer. It's just so refreshing to see them going, hey, we're all human beings, and we want to serve. We want to make a big impact, and the passion and the energy and you be you is the key message I give people. Don't follow along in the boomer footsteps of, make sure that you say all the right things and make sure you're scripted and what have you. Create a whole new world where let's just treat each other as human beings, judgment free, and let's honor that everyone has a different point of view, and we all are put on the planet, I believe, to make the biggest impact.
Thank you for that. Thank you for those words. And again, thank you for being on Say Hi to the Future today.
Thank you so much, Ken. Pure joy to support you and your community of listeners. Thank you for inviting me here today.